In an apartment, a man is speaking on the phone, trying to convince the person on the other end to lend him 10,000 yen. He insists that he's the only one he can count on and reminds him that he paid him back properly last time. He promises to return the money by the 15th. After some hesitation, the person agrees, prompting the blue-haired man to thank him profusely, calling him a lifesaver for helping in such a difficult time. The blue-haired man believes himself to be incredibly unlucky. Some people fail at everything they attempt, while others exist just to make those around them feel relatively better. He considers himself the latter. He's a web novelist, barely scraping by. As he stretches in his chair in front of his computer, it becomes clear he is a 29-year-old man who just begged an acquaintance for 10,000 yen to pay his rent. Yawning, he mutters that he's managed to survive another month, somehow. As a novelist, he receives a barrage of hate comments, aimed at both him and his work. While scrolling through them, he insists that it's all just foreshadowing, and that everything will come together in the end. The readers just need to be patient and let the story unfold. Still, he admits it's not their fault. It's his own lack of skill. He wonders, not for the first time, if life would be better if he were reborn into a novel world, one where he could be overpowered. Just as he says that aloud, his nose suddenly starts to bleed. Realizing it, he quickly tilts his head back to stop it and fumbles around for tissues. At that moment, a man in a blue kimono holding a tissue box appears and asks if he's looking for it. Grateful, the blue-haired man thanks him, only to realize he's no longer in his apartment. He's now in a completely different room, standing among strangers. The man with the tissue box introduces the blue-haired man as Ida Kohei, a 29-year-old novelist, and then states his cause of death: overwork. A man sitting at a desk in front of Kohei introduces himself as Inma Reikon, better known as King Inma. He welcomes Kohei to hell. Kohei, confused and overwhelmed, tries to grasp the situation. Inma gives him the summary. Kohei has died, but he's incredibly lucky. Despite everything, he should consider himself fortunate. Kohei, startled at being called lucky, points to himself in disbelief. Inma goes on to explain that Kohei's death number is exactly 7,777,777, a number blessed by fate. Because of this rare alignment, Inma declares that he will grant Kohei one wish. However, he warns that outrageous requests like becoming a divine being are off the table. Kohei feels overwhelmed. He just finished meeting a novel deadline, and now he's being told he's dead and gets a wish? Still struggling to process everything, Kohei starts worrying about his upcoming novel publication. Inma, clearly irritated, raises his voice, reminding Kohei how busy he is. The intense aura surrounding Inma frightens Kohei, and in a panic, he blurts out his wish: to be reincarnated into a novel world. Inma raises an eyebrow and asks why. Kohei sheepishly responds that he wants to enjoy a harem adventure. Inma finds this amusing and asks which novel he wants to be reincarnated into, adding that any of Kohei's own stories are off-limits. Kohei wonders how Inma knows that, but it makes sense. If he entered his own story, he'd essentially be a god there. He then recalls a novel he had in his room. Though he doesn't remember every detail, he recalls the general plot. It's about a protagonist who lives a carefree life. The title? Became a dropout from hunter school. Kohei confidently declares that he chooses that novel. Inma snaps his fingers, confirming Kohei's choice to live inside the story. He remarks that it's been a while since he's heard such an entertaining wish. As a special treat, Inma offers Kohei 2 additional wishes. As Inma snaps his fingers again, Kohei starts glowing, signaling the beginning of his transportation. In a rush, Kohei yells that he wants to be reincarnated 2 years before the novel's story begins. In the original timeline, the protagonist enters high school at the start of the story, but his true rise begins in his 2nd to 3rd year of middle school. Since the protagonist initially struggles to shed his delinquent image, Kohei believes that resolving this early will make everything easier. Inma agrees to fulfill that wish and hopes Kohei will live a happy life in the novel world. Finally, he turns to Kohei and asks what his last wish will be. The reincarnation process was already nearing completion, so Kohei didn't have much time to think. In a hurry, he told Inma to make him incredibly handsome. As he began to fade away, He shouted that Inma should combine the best features of all celebrities and turn him into the most attractive man possible. With that final wish, Kohei completely vanished from hell. The man holding the tissue box looked at Inma and commented that Kohei was a strange soul. Inma nodded in agreement, saying that Kohei was certainly unexpected. While appearance is technically part of one's attributes, most people in that situation usually ask to be reincarnated as the protagonist, not to be made handsome. Meanwhile, Kohei found himself in a strange space. A glowing window appeared in front of him, stating that the soul exchange process was in progress. Once complete, another notification appeared. Substitute Kohei is now being transferred to the novel world. Kohei opened his eyes, feeling like he was in a dream. But the realization quickly hit. He had really died. Another pop-up window appeared, stating, Substitute Kohei successfully transferred into the body of Kageyama Ayumu. Kohei blinked in confusion. He had assumed he was in the body of the protagonist from Hundrop, but then remembered that the main character's name was Amano Satoshi. That meant he wasn't the protagonist. Who is Ayumu? He wondered. Right on cue, another window appeared. Ayumu's memories will now be unlocked. Suddenly, Kohei felt a sharp pain in his head. Memories flooded in, memories of Ayumu's life in the world of Hundrop, a world where hunter talent manifests at the age of 10. Those who tested as low class or above were admitted to hunter school. But in Ayumu's case, the orphanage he lived in had intercepted the test kits. The director reported all the children's aptitude levels as the lowest class, effectively barring them from ever becoming hunters. As a result, Ayumu attended a regular school and lived a life far removed from the world of hunters. Years later, after a revision in the law and a retest, Ayumu was found to have middle-class aptitude, something only 15% of the population had. However, by then, it was too late for him to transfer to hunter school. He graduated from regular school at the age of 20 and began working as a porter for hunters. Eventually, he awakened his abilities and joined a guild as a hunter. After the memory sequence concluded, another window popped up. To prevent memory overload, additional memories will be unlocked under specific conditions. Kohei held his aching head and sighed. Ayumu is just as unlucky as me. He felt cheated. When someone asks to be reincarnated into a novel, it's only natural to assume they've become the protagonist. But now he was stuck as the embodiment of misfortune in a background character's body. Thanks to the recalled memories, Kohei now understood who Ayumu was, a homeroom teacher in the class next to the protagonists. He taught swordsmanship. In other words, he was a background character among background characters, with barely any presence in the story at all. Furious, Kohei shouted that if he had known things would turn out like this, he would have just asked to be sent to heaven instead. He briefly considered returning to confront Inma, but realized that to go back to the afterlife, he'd have to die again. That terrifying possibility made him drop the idea entirely. Suddenly, another window appeared. You will soon awaken. Wishing you good fortune. Kohei snapped. They've got to be kidding, he shouted. Now I have to live as Ayumu? Let me start over. But before he could finish ranting, everything around him shifted. The next thing he knew, he was lying in bed in the novel world, awaking. It was real. It wasn't a dream. Suddenly, the phone beside him rang. The caller ID displayed Chase Financial Team. Kohei, now Ayumu, picked up the phone and greeted the caller. The person on the other end greeted him back, confirming that they had deposited his retirement pay and were calling to verify the transaction. They informed him that if there were any discrepancies or questions, he could reach out anytime. Ayumu thanked them and ended the call. He then checked his messages and saw the deposit confirmation. Ichibana Shinjin Bank has deposited 3,887,146 yen into your account. Current balance, 30,953,248 yen. Staring at the number, Ayumu was stunned, but also thrilled. He walked over to the window, opened the curtains, and smiled. From today on, I'm Ayumu. He thought it was only fitting for a hunter to have such a balance. Looking back at Ayumu's memories, he realized that Ayumu's life hadn't been much different from his own. For some, 30 million yen might not be impressive, but for Kohei, who died overworked, broke, and barely surviving as a third-rate web novelist, it was a dreamlike fortune beyond imagination. But now, he wondered, what was the point of complaining? Even if monsters, portals, and hunters existed, this world didn't feel that different from modern-day Japan. In this version of Japan, Ayumu is now 25 years old. At that age, he has a bank balance of over 30 million yen, and on top of that, he's incredibly handsome, making him believe his new life is absolutely perfect. Not only does Ayumu have money, but he also possesses a youthful, attractive face along with decent abilities and strong stamina. As he looks at his B-class hunter certification, he reflects on his situation. Unlike the protagonist, who is portrayed as coming from a wealthy background, Ayumu is a background character, one who will be forgotten as the story progresses and power levels escalate. His presence has no real impact on the narrative, whether he exists or not. But to Ayumu, that's ideal. The novel actually has two main protagonists. One is Tsukizaki Makoto, the original main character. The other is Amano Satoshi, who reincarnated into the body of a delinquent young master. Satoshi used his knowledge of the original story to his advantage, seizing all the opportunities that were originally meant for Makoto. On top of that, he used his family's wealth to consume spiritual medicines, eventually growing powerful enough to rival the original protagonist's talent. Because Kohei has reincarnated into Ayumu's body, he stands apart from both protagonists right from the beginning. There's no need for him to compete, nor is he positioned as a rival. He has no reason to get involved with the protagonists at all. The only reason Kohei ever wanted to become the protagonist in the first place was to enjoy an easy life. And now, ironically, he can do just that. Ayumu resolves to live a quiet, luxurious life without drawing attention to himself. One day, when the portals in this world begin to go berserk, as foretold in the original story, and the world faces a major crisis, Makoto and Satoshi will join forces to fight off the great invading army. At first, some people won't believe in them, but eventually, everyone will have no choice but to place their hopes on the two protagonists. The world will cheer for them as they stand at the gate to hold back the monstrous threat. Soon after, he receives a reply to his job application. He has been appointed as the swordsmanship instructor at the second hunter school. Reading the offer, Ayumu wonders if this is what winning the lottery feels like. Convinced that he's been given the opportunity of a lifetime, Ayumu decides to faithfully follow the original story's timeline, at least until the day the portals go berserk. Until then, his mission is simple: live quietly, stay under the radar, and accumulate as much wealth as possible. Today is Ayumu's first day at work. In the Hundrop novel, Ayumu is a swordsmanship instructor with a B-class hunter background. He considers this situation a blessing in disguise. The moment Kohei reincarnated into the novel happened to be just after Ayumu had left the Chase Guild and was about to start working at the hunter school. Since there was a brief period before his new job began, Ayumu took the opportunity to investigate the real Ayumu. He compiled personal information that could be verified through contacts and financial records. However, during the investigation, he began to wonder if something was wrong. There seemed to be nothing going on in Ayumu's life. He discovered that Ayumu's interpersonal relationships were practically non-existent, and that he was a complete loner. Kohei, in his past life, had also become naturally distant from others, spending most of his time alone, writing novels. But for a hunter like Ayumu to have so little contact with others, with no meaningful relationships at all, made Kohei feel as if Ayumu had deliberately isolated himself. Reflecting on this, Ayumu remembers how, in his previous life, people often avoided making eye contact with him because of his creepy appearance. The memory brings tears to his eyes. He understands that no one can have everything, but it still feels unfair. In his past life, he had given up on many things: love, marriage, and companionship. He used to tell others that those things were troublesome or that solitude was easier, but in truth, it was just an excuse. His choices were shaped by personal and family circumstances. But now, as Ayumu, everything is different. He might not be the protagonist, but he's already gained so much more than he ever had. Standing outside the staff room, Ayumu thinks to himself that he'll use everything he has now to experience the life he missed out on. With determination, he opens the staff room door, steps inside, and greets everyone with a smile. Wearing a cheerful expression, he introduces himself and announces that, starting today, he will be serving as the swordsmanship instructor for the first-year students. As soon as he finishes, an elderly instructor with glasses looks over at him. Ayumu notices that several teachers and professors are staring, making him feel slightly embarrassed. He wonders if he missed something, as the atmosphere feels different from what he expected. The older man stands up, introduces himself as Hayashi Masao, and offers Ayumu the seat next to him. Ayumu smiles and thanks him warmly, saying that he looks forward to working together. A few teachers approach Ayumu, surprised by his appearance, asking if he's really a teacher and commenting that he looks like an actor. They tease that his handsome face might cause quite a stir on campus today. Ayumu grins brightly and thanks them. He knows this much is expected. One of the teachers asks which guild Ayumu belonged to before joining the school. Ayumu replies that he was part of the Chase Guild. The teachers, recognizing the prestige of the guild, compliment him. Another remarks that it's admirable for someone young and capable enough to still be an active hunter to instead choose teaching. Ayumu humbly replies that it's not a big deal, while secretly feeling a newfound sense of confidence building inside him. Just then, a green-haired professor joins the conversation, commenting that it seems they've welcomed someone truly remarkable. He greets Ayumu and introduces himself as Ryazaki Yamato, the swordsmanship instructor for the second-year students. Yamato adds that he's from the Wakashu Guild and graduated from the 6th Hunter School. He then asks Ayumu which school he graduated from. Placing a hand on Ayumu's shoulder, Yamato compliments his handsome face and jokes that he must have been extremely popular. Before Ayumu can answer, another teacher chimes in, eager to guess which school Ayumu graduated from, speculating that it might be the 7th. Another teacher, who is an alum of a well-known institution, says that if Ayumu had graduated from her school, she would definitely have known. So she guesses the 5th. Ayumu, startled by the enthusiasm, smiles awkwardly and tells them he didn't graduate from a hunter school at all. The pink-haired teacher laughs, assuming he's joking, and asks how someone could become a hunter without graduating from one. Another teacher wonders if Ayumu studied abroad or holds dual citizenship, then questions whether their school even accepts foreign nationals. Ayumu smiles and replies that he is purely Japanese. He explains that not all hunters graduate from hunter schools and reveals that he's one of those rare cases. As soon as he says that, the atmosphere in the room shifts. Yamato quietly lifts his hand from Ayumu's shoulder, and his expression turns visibly irritated, and tells Ayumu that he should have mentioned it earlier, so he wouldn't have wasted his time. Without waiting for a response, Yamato announces that he's going out for a walk before the morning assembly. Hearing this, the pink-haired teacher stands up and says she'll join him, adding that she had certain expectations when Ayumu said he was from the Chase Guild, but now realizes he's just a non-regular. Ayumu is stunned by the sudden change in their attitude. Masao, seated beside him, sighs deeply. Another teacher chimes in, commenting that this must be one of those cases where the school is forced to hire graduates from outside the hunter school system. Ayumu is shaken by the label non-regular. Suddenly, a pop-up window appears in front of Ayumu. It states that it has detected a tense atmosphere and proceeds to trigger a memory recall. The recalled memory explains the story behind the hunter aptitude test kits, considered the most accurate way to detect hunter potential. These kits contain the body fluid of a monster called Saramin and cost around 10,000 yen each. The facility director who illegally distributed these kits and forced children to fight low-class monsters was eventually arrested. Later, with the help of Yuki, another orphanage graduate, Ayumu was retested. However, graduates from non-hunter schools like Ayumu and Yuki often fall behind due to the lack of formal education that hunter schools provide. As a result, the ability gap between the two groups becomes inevitable. Facing discrimination, non-hunter school graduates united and pushed for change. Eventually, a law was passed to prohibit discrimination against non-regular hunters. The law also banned employers from asking about educational backgrounds during recruitment. Still, some public institutions implemented separate quotas for non-hunter school graduates. In other words, although the law was meant to protect equality, resentment among hunter school graduates only grew stronger. The pop-up advises Ayumu that, going forward, it's better not to reveal that he's a non-hunter school graduate. Ayumu becomes frustrated, thinking the system should have warned him earlier. While he understands the emotions of those around him, it's still disheartening. According to the memories he recalled, Ayumu had never participated in demonstrations or even signed a petition. He had simply endured quietly. Masao looks concerned and apologizes to Ayumu for what happened on his very first day. He asks Ayumu to try and understand the situation. Ayumu knows he must bear with it if he wants to enjoy a comfortable retirement. He calmly replies to Masao that he understands why people might feel resentful. After all, if they believe he was hired through preferential treatment as a non-hunter school graduate, their reaction is understandable. Masao looks confused and asks what Ayumu means. Ayumu turns to him and asks if he wasn't hired through a special policy. Masao, still puzzled, says Ayumu passed the exam and was officially scouted. He clarifies that this is not a regular school, but a hunter school. There's no such thing as preferential hiring here. Masao adds that it seems like there's a general misunderstanding among the teachers and professors. The scene then shifts to Yamato and the two female teachers outside, smoking. Yamato comments that the school must be under financial strain if they've started hiring professors through preferential treatment. One of the teachers expresses pity for the first-year students who will have to take Ayumu's swordsmanship classes. Yamato shrugs, saying it's not a big deal. First years only focus on building stamina and mastering the basics anyway. He figures the school must have thought the same and deliberately assigned Ayumu to them. The pink-haired teacher remarks that at least Ayumu is handsome. The brown-haired teacher raises an eyebrow and asks if she likes him. She quickly clarifies that she doesn't. It's just that Ayumu is so good-looking. However, she then comments that someone who didn't even graduate from a hunter school can't amount to much. The brown-haired teacher stops smoking, speculating that Ayumu must be from an orphanage. She says that while he might be attractive with that kind of background, it's a waste. She starts walking and says they should advise their students to take swordsmanship classes outside the school. After all, being a hunter is a life-risking job after graduation, and who knows what could happen if someone like Ayumu is teaching them. As she's still speaking, she suddenly stops, startled to find Ayumu standing right in front of her. Surprised, she asks why he's there. Ayumu tells her that he had asked Yamato where the smoking area was. He then explains that there had been a misunderstanding earlier and asks if the three of them have a moment to talk before the morning assembly. Instead of responding to his request, they try to deflect and twist the situation, accusing Ayumu of eavesdropping. Ayumu grows even angrier, but he maintains his composure, stating that he simply happened to overhear their conversation. He holds back his frustration by reminding himself of the paycheck he'll receive from working. Calmly, Ayumu says he was only concerned that their misunderstanding might spread to the students. He clarifies that he just wanted to make it known that he wasn't hired through any form of preferential treatment. He adds that he's looking forward to working with them. However, Yamato, still visibly irritated, responds coldly, saying that Ayumu seems to be the one misunderstanding something. He continues, explaining that whether it was preferential treatment or being parachuted into the position doesn't matter, because that's not the real issue. Yamato steps closer and tells Ayumu that the problem is more fundamental, whether Ayumu should have been chosen at all. Then, he orders Ayumu not to barge into conversations like that and refers to him again as a non-hunter school graduate. Yamato and the other teachers begin walking away from the smoking area. As they leave, Yamato instructs Ayumu to keep a low profile at school and stay quiet, suggesting that if he wants to socialize, he should speak with the regular subject teachers instead. The pink-haired teacher, still lingering nearby, comments that Ayumu must at least be B-class since he teaches swordsmanship. She continues to chatter about him, even as Ayumu stands silently and listens to it all. Suddenly, Yamato turns back and laughs mockingly. He tells Ayumu that if he's dissatisfied with the situation, he can challenge him to a duel. Yamato mentions that he has an A-class promotion exam next month, so if Ayumu waits until after that, it won't be too humiliating when he loses. Standing there, Ayumu begins to understand why the original Ayumu had been such a loner. He recalls a painful moment from his previous life. Back then, Kohei had once shown a manuscript. The editor praised the work, which filled Kohei with hope. Excited, Kohei asked if this meant he could finally debut. But the editor quickly shut him down, saying the novel was impressive for an amateur, but that Kohei, having never graduated from a recognized school like the editor had, should treat writing as a hobby and not aim for publication. Kohei was devastated. The editor went on to say that if he turned it into a profession, he would grow to hate writing. Later, Kohei searched online to see how the person who eventually debuted using the novel Kohei had written was doing. To his dismay, the work was eventually exposed, labeled a fake, and harshly criticized. Ayumu realizes he had forgotten just how unfortunate the original Ayumu truly was. Like Kohei, he too had faced discrimination. In many ways, this life wasn't so different from the one Kohei had left behind. Even if it offered stability, Ayumu now questions the point of living passively like this. Determined to change something, he calls out, "Wait." Yamato stops and turns around. "What is it?" he asks. Ayumu looks straight at him, his expression firm. He's made up his mind. For once, he decides to show off a little. "I accept the duel," Ayumu declares. "If that's what it takes to live a comfortable life in the future, then so be it." Both teachers are surprised by Ayumu's declaration, and Yamato asks if he's in his right mind. He mocks Ayumu, suggesting that if he's just trying to impress the other teachers, he should retract his challenge now. Yamato will pretend it never happened. But Ayumu firmly states that he's serious and wants to duel. In the world of Hundrop, a duel is used to settle disputes between hunters. The result of the duel determines the outcome, and refusing one brings dishonor, unless the challenge is deemed unreasonable or unfair. Ayumu explains that since he's being treated with prejudice for being a non-hunter school graduate, he has no choice but to prove himself in a duel against Yamato. This time, Ayumu taunts Yamato, suggesting they could hold the duel after Yamato's A-rank promotion, if that would make it less embarrassing when Yamato loses. Yamato, growing more irritated, accuses Ayumu of underestimating him. He asks how much duel experience Ayumu even has, then leans in with a threatening expression and reminds him that in duels, everything is allowed, meaning he won't be held responsible if Ayumu gets hurt. With a serious expression, Ayumu replies, mocking Yamato in return. He asks whether Yamato is going to duel or keep talking. Yamato becomes visibly angry, and Ayumu sets the time and location. The swordsmanship training grounds, next Friday, exactly 1 week from now. He also states that he wants the 2 female teachers to serve as witnesses. Still fuming, Yamato replies that he doesn't know where Ayuma's confidence comes from, but he'd better start preparing to look for a new job by next week. With that, Yamato and the 2 female teachers leaving Ayumu standing there alone. That day passes in a blur. Later, Ayumu enters his first class and introduces himself as the new swordsmanship instructor. The students react with visible shock. None of them expected someone so handsome to be teaching their class. Throughout the morning, Ayumu receives envious stares from the students. To his surprise, swordsmanship, which he had initially worried about, comes to him naturally the moment he grips a sword. Thanks to Ayumu's conditionally awakened memories, the original Ayumu's combat knowledge has been ingrained into his body. During class, he demonstrates those skills confidently, effortlessly capturing the attention of the students, especially the girls, who are charmed by both his skill and appearance. The morning goes smoothly, as first-year students are mainly focused on basic techniques and physical training. But in the afternoon, the mood shifts. When Ayumu introduces himself to a new class, he's met with disinterested stares. While writing on the board, some students suddenly ask if it's true he'll be dueling Yamato next week. Ayumu is caught off guard. He hadn't expected the rumor to spread this quickly. He suspects the 2 female teachers may have spread it, likely assuming the outcome was already obvious. The students express concern, pointing out that Yamato is an elite hunter who specializes in spearmanship. Ayumu responds calmly, telling them that he can't let fear stop him before even trying. He emphasizes that the most important thing is never giving up. He then addresses the elephant in the room, saying that, as most of them have probably heard, he's a non-hunter school graduate teaching swordsmanship. He admits, half-jokingly, that he honestly has no confidence, then suddenly grins and says he actually has no confidence in losing. Either way, the results will speak for themselves next week. For now, he encourages his students to focus on the lesson. The students are stunned by Ayumu's confidence. If asked whether this was psychological warfare using the students, the answer would be half true, but Ayumu's belief in himself does carry weight. After class, Ayumu heads to the bus station, buys a ticket, and boards the bus. As he sits down, he reflects that half of what he told the students is genuine, because starting tonight, everything will change. As the bus drives on, Ayumu sits silently, thinking. If those from elite hunter schools are going to look down on people with such ridiculous pride, then he'll just have to gain elite education for himself. Eventually, the bus stops, and Ayumu steps off, finding himself at the base of a mountain. The first major advantage of Hundrop's protagonist is the mastery of the inner strength technique, something uncommon in reincarnation stories. Instead of gaining power through spiritual medicine or rare items, the protagonist first learns a martial art style internal technique. If the first event had been about an item or medicine, Ayumu wouldn't have dared take it. If he had, Amano Satoshi, who knows the story's future, would have grown suspicious. Ayumu begins climbing the mountain, searching for the hidden location. He recalls how even Satoshi stole opportunities meant for Makoto, the original protagonist. But Ayumu believes that good things should be shared, and besides, he doesn't intend to become a hero who saves the world. He just needs to be strong enough to win the duel. After some searching, Ayumu finally finds the place he's looking for, the site where the first key event of Hundrop took place. All that remains is to find the essence of the inner strength technique hidden beyond the portal. Ayumu enters the portal and opens his eyes to find himself in a snowy forest. He hadn't known what to expect. There was no description of this place in the original novel, but the scenery is breathtaking. He never imagined such a place even existed. Slapping his cheeks, Ayumu tells himself this isn't the time to admire the view. He needs to find the manual quickly. Suddenly, he feels a chill and instinctively dodges an incoming attack that slices through nearby trees. Ayumu falls to the ground, stunned and wondering what just happened. A long, white-haired old man appears, commending Ayumu for evading his technique. He says Ayumu clearly isn't an ordinary man, then points his sword at him and demands to know his name, affiliation, and which sect sent him. Ayumu freezes, overwhelmed by the situation. The old man continues questioning him and asks how Ayumu ended up there. Ayumu realizes the man is speaking Chinese, but somehow he can understand it. That must mean the original Ayumu also understood Chinese. Raising his hands in the air, Ayumu explains that he's a teacher at a hunter school in Japan and came through a portal. But his words only confuse the old man, who doesn't understand a thing. Trying again, Ayumu points toward the portal and asks if the old man sees the white gate. The man replies that all he can see is endless snow, then reveals that he's been trapped there for countless years, so long that he stopped counting after 30. Ayumu wonders what's going on. The manual he expected to find isn't there, and instead, he's met with a strange old man. Thinking it through, he begins to suspect that the man is Zhao Luliang. The old man is surprised someone still remembers that name. Zhao then asks how Ayumu knows it. Ayumu recalls Zhao as the one who left behind the inner strength technique the protagonist was supposed to obtain through the portal. But something feels off. When the protagonist discovered the portal in the novel, Zhao didn't appear. Instead, he left a note saying he had already ascended to immortality. Then Ayumu remembers. He had asked Enma to send him 2 years before the story began. That means he's arrived before Zhao's ascension. Now understanding the situation, Ayumu realizes he can't reveal that he read it all in a novel. So instead, he tells Zhao he once heard a story. Zhao asks him to share it. Ayumu begins, telling the tale of a legendary swordsman who fought a fearsome dragon that appeared in the Central Plains. He says the hero in that story reminded him of Zhao, who had mysteriously vanished. Zhao smiles, saying that someone must have witnessed that battle after all. Ayumu feels relieved. His improvised story worked. He had simply recalled some lines from the novel, and it seems Zhao is the type to take great pride in his martial accomplishments. Seizing the opportunity, Ayumu decides to be direct. He bows respectfully and says he came here because he heard a legendary warrior was living in seclusion. He insists that he means no harm and begs Zhao to lower his sword and teach him. Zhao scoffs, calling him impudent for suddenly asking to be trained. He sheaths his sword but refuses to teach Ayumu martial arts. He tells him to leave and be grateful for his life. Ayumu realizes that if things continue this way, Zhao won't train him. So he changes his approach and says, almost defeated, that his opponent is a spear user. Zhao turns around sharply. What did you say? Ayumu explains that he has a duel coming up and his opponent specializes in spearmanship. Then, cautiously, he asks Zhao which is superior, the spear or the sword. Zhao replies that the spear is superior in terms of reach and, with proper training, can turn someone into a formidable warrior. It excels in both offensive power and control. So, Zhao answers plainly, the spear. Ayumu is shocked at how easily Zhao admits it. Zhao then tells him to go and cherish his life. But Ayumu can't leave now. He'd bragged to both students and teachers. If he ran away, he'd have never come in the first place. Deciding to act, Ayumu stands and says that he already knew the spear was superior and the sword was no match. He says he had hoped to find some reassurance, but with the duel looming next week, he might as well go home and practice how to beg for forgiveness. He dramatically asks what he should say. Perhaps he should cry and apologize, admit the superiority of spearmanship on behalf of all sword instructors, and declare that in front of the spear, his sword is nothing but a toothpick. Zhao glares at him, that his sword can even defeat dragons. He adds, with fire in his eyes, "And you bring up spears in front of me?" Ayumu pretends to cry. Zhao softens. "Fine," he says. "I'll reward your resolve. I'll help you, just this once. Now stop crying." Ayumu cheers internally. Zhao really is a softie. He thanks Zhao and eagerly asks what kind of help he'll receive. A secret manual? Some spiritual medicine? Zhao narrows his eyes and tells him he'll give him something far better. Without warning, Zhao strikes several points on Ayumu's body. Ayumu collapses, writhing in pain. After finishing, Zhao remarks that Ayumu's dantian is surprisingly empty of qi, even for a warrior. He explains that he's injected a small amount of yang energy into Ayumu's meridians. In 4 days, Ayumu's dantian will open. In 6, his body will begin to change. Zhao admits he doesn't know how powerful Ayumu's opponent is, but assures him that with this, Ayumu won't be outclassed anywhere he goes. Ayumu wonders if this is really a power-up event. Just as he's about to ask something, Zhao interrupts and tells him to return after winning the duel. Since Zhao is stuck here, Ayumu needs to show the world that the sword still reigns supreme. 1 week later, the day of the duel arrives. All the teachers gather to watch. Yamato smirks. Yamato taunts Ayumu that he will give him credit for showing up, asking if Ayumu found a new job yet. Ayumu responds calmly, saying Yamato is still as talkative as ever, and tells him to just get started. Yamato laughs and says he'll be generous and let Ayumu attack first. Ayumu knows it's because the spear gains the upper hand when it counters. Still, Ayumu accepts without hesitation and charges forward. His body feels light. He's strong now, strong enough not to be defeated one-sidedly. Even so, Ayumu thinks there's no way he can win unless he gives everything he has. Leaping into the air, Ayumu swings his sword with everything he's got, determined not to live a submissive life ever again, even if this duel leaves him injured. The strike lands, and with a single strike Ayumu is able to defeat Yamato. Gasps echo through the crowd. Ayumu is more shocked than anyone. He won the duel with just a single blow. The referee quickly announces Ayumu as the winner and shouts for someone to call an ambulance. Ayumu remembers what Zhao told him, that in 4 days his dantian would open, and in 6 days his body would begin to transform. Trembling and sweating, Ayumu stands silently. What did Zhao do to me? The underdog protagonist, Amano, learns martial arts and achieves remarkable growth. Although he consumed spiritual medicine, he had barely any real skill before that. Ayumu had known about this. Yet even so, the power he now possesses feels overwhelming. While Ayumu is lost in thought, teacher Masao suddenly calls out his name and rushes toward him, asking if he's injured. Seeing him, Ayumu asks if Masao had been watching. Masao replies enthusiastically that he saw the entire duel. It was incredible. He admits he couldn't even follow Ayumu's movements and jokingly adds that it looked like Ayumu vanished. Ayumu quickly realizes how the scene must have looked to a regular subject teacher. Still, Masao seems genuinely happy, likely due to his own issues with Yamato. He expresses his relief that Ayumu is unharmed and decides to treat him to a small celebration. Hearing that, other teachers also decide to join them. Meanwhile, the pink-haired and brown-haired teachers, embarrassed by the outcome, quietly leave the hall. When Masao hears that more teachers want to join, he announces that everyone should chip in 2,000 yen as a participation fee. They all head to a restaurant to celebrate. At 4 in the morning, Ayumu returns home and exhausted. He falls into bed. Normally, someone would wake up with a terrible hangover, but Ayumu's transformed dantian begins its self-purification process. With physical abilities far beyond his expectations, Ayumu wakes up surprisingly well-rested. This newfound power makes Ayumu feel the need to confront the person responsible for changing his body. He heads back to the portal, carrying a bag with him. Although he hadn't expected to return so soon, he wants to at least thank Zhao for saving his life. The snowy forest is beautiful, with wind sweeping across the white landscape as Ayumu walks through it, observing the terrain. Despite walking for some time, he doesn't see a single animal, an unusually harsh setting, even for a novel. Eventually, Zhao notices Ayumu and remarks with surprise that he came back. Zhao is sitting on a large stone, his face turned away. He then asks Ayumu if he managed to defeat the spear user. Ayumu proudly replies that not only did he win, but he sent his opponent flying with a single strike. Zhao dismisses the opponent as incompetent, but Ayumu corrects him, saying the man was actually quite well-known and skilled. Ayumu explains that he came not just to thank him, but also to ask what Zhao had done to his body. Zhao casually replies that he merely opened Ayumu's dantian, just enough so he wouldn't be completely helpless. He then begins asking questions. What martial art did Ayumu use, and how strong was the spear user's inner force? For Zhao, it's all a curious pastime. Ayumu stands stunned after hearing the term martial arts, and finally understands why he had become so strong. He wonders how he forgot that Zhao's full transmission was the first power-up event for the underdog. Amano had struggled to open his dantian through hard training, but for Ayumu, it had opened directly upon learning martial arts. Ayumu apologizes for interrupting Zhao, but says something feels off. Zhao asks what he means. Ayumu explains that while his dantian had been closed, there was a tiny amount of inner force. He places a hand over his abdomen and says that the energy had accumulated unknowingly through sword swings and combat. In martial arts novels, inner force is built through refined techniques. But hunters are different. Ayumu suspects that Zhao might have mistaken the mana he built up through hunter training for inner force. Curious, Ayumu then asks Zhao the name of the country he came from before arriving in the snowy forest. Zhao replies that the nation was Ming, and the emperor was Zhu Yuanzhong, the Hongwu emperor. Hearing that, Ayumu immediately understands the situation. In the world of the novel, hunters only started awakening not long ago. That means Zhao came from an entirely different world, with no way of knowing the current state of things outside the forest. Ayumu tells Zhao that he's interested in history, which is how he recognized him, the legendary swordsman Zhao. He then gently informs him that martial arts no longer exist in the outside world. Zhao is visibly shaken by the news. Ayumu goes on to explain that a lot of time has passed since Zhao's era, and a new form of power has emerged. As a result, martial arts were gradually forgotten. Ayumu believes this explanation will be easier for Zhao to accept than trying to explain he's from another world entirely. Listening carefully, Zhao assumes that more time has passed than he had realized. Living in the forest for so long had dulled his sense of time. Looking at Zhao, Ayumu can tell that he's feeling down. But he reassures himself that it's okay. Amano will carry on Zhao's legacy. Then Ayumu shows Zhao the bag he brought with him, saying he doesn't know if it will help, but he brought some well-known food from the outside world to cheer him up. Zhao takes a few drinks from the bag and stares at them, clearly shocked. He asks if the outside world is suffering from widespread illness, wondering how people could possibly nourish their bodies with such things. He reminisces about the time when everyone used to eat 50-year-old Korean ginseng. Hearing that, Ayumu clenches his fists, growing internally irritated. He thinks to himself that Zhao must be the kind of person who provokes others without even realizing it. Ayumu then asks Zhao if he likes sweet things while rummaging through his bag. Zhao replies that he doesn't care for them. After all, he's not a child. Ayumu pulls out a piece of premium chocolate, the kind often enjoyed during cold weather. He tells Zhao to try it, especially since they're in such a chilly environment. Curious about the unfamiliar packaging, Zhao examines it closely before deciding to take a bite. As soon as he does, he's delighted by the rich, sweet flavor. Though he tries to maintain his composure, Ayumu can clearly see how much the old man is enjoying it. Zhao admits that the chocolate is quite delicious and asks if there's more. Before long, he ends up eating all the snacks Ayumu brought along. He compliments the flavors of the outside world, clearly impressed. Ayumu is stunned to see that Zhao has eaten everything, snacks he had brought in case of an emergency. Trying to understand, he asks Zhao how he usually eats. Zhao responds calmly, saying he has long since transcended the desire for food. He claims he only eats to amuse himself and sample different flavors. Then, without hesitation, he asks if there's anything else to eat. Ayumu clenches his jaw in frustration, thinking to himself that he just wants to go home. Still, he figures it's fine. The food at least lifted Zhao's spirits. Zhao then shifts the topic back to their earlier discussion. He recalls that, according to Ayumu, the Ming dynasty has long since vanished. Martial arts have faded from existence, and now monsters roam the world unchecked. Ayumu confirms that this is true and adds that a new kind of being, called hunters, has taken the place of martial artists. Hearing this, Zhao reflects that he has long since lost track of time. Ever since arriving in the forest, his focus had been solely on achieving transcendence. Now, having opened Ayumu's dantian, Zhao asks if Ayumu is the only person in the outside world who can be called a martial artist. Ayumu replies that, as far as he knows, yes, he is the only one. Zhao gazes down at his sword and asks if Ayumu has come to understand the vast difference between those who have awakened martial arts and those who haven't. Then, he asks how Ayumu intends to use the power he now possesses. Ayumu answers without hesitation. He doesn't intend to do anything special. He just wants to live a normal life. He tells Zhao that martial arts are convenient for social events. Zhao watches Ayumu's expression carefully as Ayumu continues. He explains that if he ever becomes a trader, he'll need to wake up early. And if he wants to play video games, he'll need a strong back. So, in that sense, martial arts are surprisingly useful. Zhao then asks for Ayumu's name, and Ayumu introduces himself. Zhao studies him silently, thinking that Ayumu has no ambitions. He seems like a teacher guiding children in basic martial arts, not someone who would abuse the teachings Zhao might pass on. As Ayumu slings his backpack over his shoulder, Zhao suddenly introduces himself formally. Ayumu nods and says that he already knew that. Then, Zhao declares that he will take Ayumu as his disciple. Ayumu looks at him, pauses, and instantly refuses. Zhao is stunned by Ayumu's rejection and asks him to repeat what he just said. Ayumu replies that he appreciates Zhao's offer but must decline. He never intended to become this strong in the first place. He thanks Zhao for his help, saying that now that he's overcome the crisis, all he wants is to live a peaceful life. Hearing this, Zhao calls him a fool and tells him that, had Ayumu become his disciple, he could have had the world in his hands. Zhao adds that he doesn't see even a shred of hesitation in Ayumu's eyes. Understanding Ayumu's resolve, Zhao tells him to leave. He wants to prepare for his ascension. Ayumu bows respectfully, saying that meeting Zhao will remain a lifelong honor. Zhao responds that it's a pity. He had hoped to pass something on before ascending. That makes Ayumu pause. He begins to wonder. In the original novel, was this the point when Zhao planned to become immortal? Curious, Ayumu asks if it's truly possible to reach the world of immortality through ascension. Zhao explains that by reaching the pinnacle of martial arts and achieving enlightenment, or by accumulating great virtue, it is indeed possible. In his case, Zhao says he's close to reaching that pinnacle, and helping Ayumu has earned him enough virtue. With a little more training, he believes he will ascend soon. Zhao then adds that he no longer feels the need to leave behind a secret manual or any legacy. He feels lighter now. Ayumu is shocked by this and quickly asks if Zhao truly has no intention of leaving a secret manual behind. Zhao, slightly irritated, questions Ayumu's intentions. He says there's no point in leaving such a thing when he doesn't expect to meet anyone else, especially in a world where martial arts no longer exist. He adds that even if he were to write a manual, there would be no one left to practice it with. Ayumu grows anxious. If Zhao doesn't leave behind a secret manual, the future of the world could shift dramatically. Without it, Amano won't be able to grow stronger. If Amano fails to catch up to Tsukazaki, then Tsukazaki won't grow either, and without a proper rival, the world could eventually fall to monster rampages. Ayumu realizes he had treated this as just a small event in the novel, but he was careless. Panicked, Ayumu shouts for Zhao to wait. He admits that he was short-sighted and begs Zhao to take him as a disciple. Zhao, watching him with mild surprise, comments that Ayumu is a strange person. His mind changes quickly. Ayumu replies that it would be a waste for Zhao's martial arts to disappear. He earnestly asks Zhao to make him his disciple and to leave behind his martial art and a secret manual. This, Ayumu believes, is the only way he can live the relaxed life he dreams of in the future. Zhao turns to look at him and remarks that Ayumu's life is now full of calculations, very different from before. Ayumu promises that he'll always bring plenty of food during training. Hearing that, Zhao suddenly roars, asking if Ayumu is prepared, because his training follows the path of Azura. With tears in his eyes, Ayumu replies that he is prepared, while silently mourning the loss of his days off. The scene then shifts to the hunter school, where the story of a swordsmanship instructor from a non-hunter school defeating an elite hunter school instructor with a single blow has become the talk of the academy. Teachers are buzzing in group chats, joking about Yamato being knocked out. The long-standing tension between practical subject teachers and general subject teachers has also become a subject of discussion, helping Ayumu understand why Masao looked so pleased that day. Teachers begin to question the idea of preferential treatment for non-hunter school graduates. Many had believed those from non-hunter schools were less capable, but after witnessing Ayumu's duel, their perceptions have changed. On top of that, it's noted that Ayumu didn't even ask for a reward. All of this leaves a strong impression. Teachers now see Ayumu in a new light, as someone not only skilled, but humble and genuine. As Ayumu walks through the school halls, he reflects on how he completely forgot to request a reward. But being looked at with admiration and respect feels just as good, maybe even better. He realizes he's finally getting closer to the peaceful life he envisioned. He opens the classroom door, thinking that he's decided to visit Zhao every weekend, which means his weekdays will remain peaceful. But he's immediately thrown off. His students are all standing at attention. Ayumu wonders what's going on. One of the students shouts, telling everyone to stand and bow to the teacher, then cheers for Ayumu. The students begin crowding around him, asking how he won the duel and pressing him with questions. Ayumu, slightly overwhelmed, asks how they even know about the duel. Only teachers were supposed to witness it. One student explains that Sato's older brother is a teacher in the middle school division. He must have spread the word. Ayumu tries to steer the class back to normal. With a calm expression, he tells the students that they don't need to worry about that and asks them to open their textbooks. They'll be focusing on theory today. As he begins teaching, Ayumu reflects on how different his life has become. Unlike his previous life, he now has a healthy body, a stable job, and a peaceful daily routine. And so, he vows to cherish the happiness he's earned by overcoming fear and starting over. With a heart full of gratitude, just 4 hours later, Ayumu heads to the cafeteria at lunchtime and asks for more food. The food server informs him that portions are fixed, but Ayumu gives her a straight-faced look, leaving the server no choice but to add 2 extra pieces of meat. He takes his tray and sits down, thinking it must be his lucky day. Ayumu believes the springtime of his life has finally begun. While he's enjoying the moment, a teacher approaches and asks if the seat next to him is free. Ayumu becomes even more pleased when he sees her face. The black-haired woman asks if he's Ayumu, the swordsmanship instructor from the high school division. Ayumu, however, is more focused on the mountain of food in front of him than her presence. He confirms his identity and, distracted by her tray, before quickly correcting himself and asking if she knows who he is. The brown-haired woman smiles as she takes the seat and comments that Ayumu is still bad at acting. She reassures him that there are no surveillance cameras in the cafeteria, so he doesn't need to worry. Hearing her call him by his first name, Ayumu begins to wonder if the original Ayumu knew her. However, no memories are being triggered, something that usually happens when he meets someone familiar to the original Ayumu. While eating, the woman asks if he doesn't recognize her because she's changed so much. She then introduces herself as Sora. Ayumu suddenly recalls hearing that name before. A chill runs down his spine as he remembers seeing Sora listed in the original Ayumu's contacts. He cautiously asks if she's Ayaki Sora. She smiles and confirms it, asking if he finally remembers. She adds that it's understandable he didn't recognize her. She changed her image to look more like a teacher. She resumes eating while Ayumu sits in deep thought. The reason his memories didn't activate must be because Ayumu already knew her. But something doesn't feel right. Sora isn't just a random acquaintance. She's a key character from the Hundrop novel. She becomes the homeroom teacher of the protagonist and plays a central role starting in Volume 2. What's more alarming is that Sora is secretly a member of the international criminal organization known as Antagonist. Suddenly, a pop-up window appears, announcing the recovery of Ayumu's memories. His head starts to hurt as the memories flood in. Antagonist, abbreviated as Antaz, is a pro-hunter organization infamous for taking down countless hunters. They are a sworn enemy of the International Hunter Federation. Despite their brutality, they operate in secrecy, appearing and disappearing without a trace. Their arrest record is almost non-existent, making them a highly dangerous and elusive group. Noticing Ayumu's anxious expression, Sora casually tells him not to worry, smiling warmly and saying he should relax. But Ayumu's instincts scream that something is wrong. He had read the novel all the way to the end, and nowhere did it mention that Sora was a member of Antaz. As confusion sets in, another pop-up window appears, this time unlocking a side story. It announces, "Now recording, side story, Sora, the assassin of Antaz." Ayumu breaks out in goosebumps. His thoughts spiral. Just who is the original Ayumu?